Welcome back to Hotham's Apiary. I'm Jason Hotham, and in this video I want to look at how the bees are flying in and out of their hives so that we can get an idea of what they're doing. We can look and see if they're bringing in pollen. We can also look and see if they're guarding the entry, if they're preventing other bees from entering that do not belong there, maybe even other insects such as wasps. And with this information, we can see what the strength of our colonies are without even having to go inside and do an inspection. You won't want to miss it. Beautiful weather today. The sun is shining. The past few days have been a little bit cooler. The rain that came in had a cold front come in behind it. Although it's a high pressure front, it was still kind of cold. So let's get right into this. Obviously, as you can see here, the bees are very active, flying in and out of the hive, and the entry is much too small for this hive. They are very strong, so they would have the numbers and the ability to guard a larger entry. So that's what I plan to do as well. I'm going to remove the wooden entry blocker there and change the size of the entry. So some things that we can see right away. We can see that a lot of the bees that are coming in have pollen on their legs. And we can also see that there are bees that are, when they fly out, they're just shooting straight out of the hive entry. They're not crawling up too high. Some bees will do this because right now, as I said, the entry is too small. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to get into the hive. This is beautiful, wonderful to see how the bees are kind of like in a holding pattern. Some of them, when they come in, they're kind of just floating around, looking how to best enter the hive. And I've added these little colored wedges, wood wedges underneath the entry. I've mentioned this in another video when I was talking about hive systems. I'll place an info card above. The bees themselves do not really need any type of a landing board, but there are some theories that bees also can find their hives based on the color of the entryway. Whether it's true or not, I can't really confirm, but the bees seem to use it as a little ramp to get in. First of all, they land on this platform here, and then they crawl up and go inside of the hive. I'm wearing protective gear right now, but to be honest with you, I probably don't even need it. The bees, their only concern right now is getting in and out of the hive. But, you know, better safe than sorry. So I'm going to, first of all, move this camera angle back a little bit so you can see when I open the entryway. Let's go ahead and expand the entryway, and then we will observe what the bees do. Yeah, look at these bees. They are trying to get out. So I'll just shake off the ones that are on the edge there. I'm going to scrape off some of this propolis that's on there already because of bee space, which is also in the hive system video. I talk about bee space. They seal up the cracks with propolis, and it tends to stick. So I'm just scraping some of that excess propolis off, make it a little bit easier for me to place this piece of wood back in. Now theoretically I could leave it open just the way it is. I mean, there's so many bees getting in and out, but it's not summer yet. It's still April. I don't want to have the bees have more stress with having to guard a larger opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and use this smaller configuration. So I have to be gentle here. I do not want to kill any bees while I'm doing this. The bees are very gentle right now. So I slowly put this into place, and the bees will understand that's not a good place to be walking around. They will move, and I can just click this into position, push it in. There's a lot of, yeah, that's as good as it's gonna get. I don't think it's gonna really come out. So now we can really observe what the bees are doing. Let me move this camera a little bit closer to the entry. Hopefully that's still in focus. What you can see is that the bees are still they still think that the entryway is on the far left, when in fact it's now towards the center. So the foraging bees, when they leave the hive, they think that's where they're supposed to go in, and they can't get in, so they're going to look for another way to get in, which happens to be now in the middle. Don't worry, they will figure it out. They will find their way back inside. All right, so that was the strongest of the three colonies. Let's take a look how the entryways look for the other two. Here you can see that the hive that I'm looking at right now is the weaker colony. There's not a whole lot of activity compared to the other side there. I do not plan to open or to increase the entry size for this hive, because since they are weaker, I want them to be able to defend that entryway as best as they possibly can. Now this hive, on the other hand, is not as active as I would have thought they would have been, but they're still doing pretty good. I'm not convinced that I need to open up this entryway. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer here. So the bees just zoom in and they zoom out. That one came right towards my face. Good thing I'm wearing a veil. Yeah, they might be getting a little agitated that there's a camera now suddenly now blocking their flight path. So I think I'm just going to keep it the size that it is right now. There's no need to force the issue. Unfortunately, there's quite a shadow that's cast here. I'm going to try to change the angle perspective a little bit here so that we can talk a little bit more about that weaker colony. Alright, so I've moved to the other side, and basically what I want to try to do is I want to try to get a little bit closer here. It's really hard to do. I don't want to zoom in with the digital zoom and probably cause it to come out of focus. But there's not a lot of activity. When the bees come in, a couple of sentries will check them, make sure that they belong to the colony, and let them pass through. as I said in the intro, we wanted to talk a little bit about what the entryway can tell us about the colony without us even having to look. Since the other colony on the far left from this perspective, since they are flying in the way that they are, first of all, they are on the sunnier side of the bee house, but they have a lot more bees. They are much stronger than the other two colonies. Perhaps that they have more sun is also a reason why they are flying more. Maybe these two colonies fly more in the morning. The bee house is actually facing southeast, but maybe they need that morning sun to really get them started. And also, it could be that later on in the afternoon, they might actually be more active. It's always hard to say. But I can tell that this colony, without even having to open the hive, is weaker than the rest. And I see that they're bringing in pollen. Every once in a while, a bee will fly by and she'll have pollen on her legs. See how they just shoot right out? That means those bees are there, the foragers, they know exactly where they need to go. And they just shoot straight on out, and they try to find the position of the sun, and they use that to navigate back to the source where they were foraging. Now those two bees, they look as if they're trying to communicate with one another. Maybe those are sentries. Hard to say. If that one flies away, then I would, she flew away, so she's probably a forager. But it's always funny, I can see how sometimes how the bees kind of peek their heads out. They take a look, trying to see what this guy's doing with his camera. It's really great. This is fun. This is really fun to watch. Okay, I'm going to close out this video. Alright, well that's it for today's video. I hope you had fun watching it. If you haven't already done it, please subscribe. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun beekeeping.